Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei, coming to you live from Beijing on CGTN. Coming up on today's program, Kim Jong Un has reopened a hotline between Pyongyang and Seoul ahead of sending athletes to the Winter Olympics. What is behind Pyongyang's sudden U-turn after a year of threats? Chinese musician Cui Jian has been rocking audiences at home and abroad for the past 30 years. He opens up about the future of China's music industry. We begin on the Korean Peninsula, where the reopening of a hotline between the DPRK and South Korea are expected to bring high-level face-to-face talks in the demilitarized zone next week. Meanwhile, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has announced that the special representative of the Chinese government on Korean Peninsula affairs and Assistant Foreign Minister Cui Jian will visit Seoul over the weekend to discuss recent developments with South Korean officials. Why has apparently Kim Jong Un shifted his strategy, and what can we expect from the upcoming meetings? Before our discussion, take a look at this.
It is here at the Korean demilitarized zone that officials from North and South finally re-established phone contact on Wednesday. And it is here face-to-face talks could soon take place in one of the meeting rooms straddling both sides of the divided peninsula.
The government welcomes North Korea's positive response to our suggestion to normalize the border hotline. We will consult with North Korea over working-level issues of our inter-Korean talks offered through this Pyongyang hotline.
The hotline was cut by Pyongyang in 2016 after Seoul shut a joint industrial complex. Its reconnection comes after DPRK leader Kim Jong Un said his country would send a delegation to the Winter Games in February. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in had long hoped the DPRK would attend, and that attendance could lead to talks on denuclearization. For now, though, the DPRK wants to keep communications simple.
It's about finding the right time to have talks about sending people to the Pyeongchang Olympics.
Here in South Korea, though, the mood is more upbeat. The government hopes the Winter Olympics could be a window of opportunity to de-escalate tensions on the peninsula. Though Korean intelligence officials say there are signs another missile test could be just days away.
For more on the soaring inter-Korean relations, we are joined in our Beijing studio by Teng Jianjun, who is the Director of the American Studies at the China Institute of International Studies. Welcome, sir. Also joining us in Beijing, Einar Tangen, our current affairs commentator. Welcome as well. Joining us on the phone in Boston with the big snow over there, we have Sun Young Lee, who is a Kim Koo Korea Foundation Professor of Korean Studies at the Fletcher School of Tufts University. Welcome, Professor, as well. Let me begin with you, Mr. Teng, here in Beijing. Tell us exactly what is going on with all of these things happen all of a sudden over the past few days. What's driving all of these news eventually?
It might be a new year, new road for all the parties concerned in dealing with the DPRK nuclear issue after rounds of disputes among the parties concerned. I think this is actually a very positive signal from DPRK that the leader of DPRK is going to have some contact with his counterparts from ROK and from other countries, and even send a delegation to Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. But this is only a signal at this moment. I'm not sure what will happen maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. What will happen, it depends.
One of the things is that the two sides are talking on the phone, North and South. First, two phone calls on the demilitarized zone, one saying hello, the other saying let's just call it off a day. And the other thing is they call each other on so-called hotline, just so-called to check whether the phone worked or not. But it worked, and the two sides talked. Yet, Mr. Tangen, how significant really is it? Is it only a makeup, or is it only, shall we say, a small piece of social news rather than a real development?
Well, we have yet to see, but I mean, it's very positive. I think people in Beijing, the government, is very, very pleased. This could be the start of a double freeze. This is what they've been looking for quite some time. You need an opening, and this has provided one. And fortunately, in the background, you have whose button is bigger, and also the seizure of a Panamanian flagged oil tanker, which was supposedly going to deliver oil to North Korea.
The promising exchange of peace messages recently apparently went unnoticed in the U.S., some suggest. President Donald Trump fired off with some angry tweets, as he always been doing, to Kim Jong Un New Year message, in which the DPRK leader claimed that the entire United States is within the range of our nuclear weapons and the nuclear button is always on my desk. The U.S. president, of course, tweeted also in the same way, that the nuclear button is bigger and better, but it actually works. Well, putting the childish exchanges of the two presidents aside, Professor Lee, do you see any real essence in the frequent exchanges of possibilities at the very beginning of 2018 for the eventual goal, denuclearize of the Korean Peninsula?
Well, Happy New Year to Ms. Ken and to our viewers.
We
have a new year and a new beginning, and the time is right for Kim Jong Un to strike a more conciliatory tone with a banner ballistic year under his belt now. During 2017, Kim Jong Un really showed off, showcasing his intercontinental ballistic missile and hydrogen bomb capabilities. It is time to climb down a rung or two on the ladder of escalation and to change the dynamics, because Kim's concessions or conciliatory pose now will give further credence. It will give wind to the message by Seoul, Beijing, and Moscow that the United States should back off, should de-escalate, and make more concessions to North Korea. And the more Kim comes across as the aggrieved party, clinging onto weapons out of paranoia as he is being threatened with total destruction by President Trump, and the more Trump comes across as the aggressor, motivated by machismo and perhaps even megalomania, all this works in Kim's favor. So the dynamics are quite important right now. This shift in the dynamics for now will favor de-escalation and the crisis-like atmosphere in the Korean Peninsula over the past several months will change in the short.
Professor Lee, if you said so, let me ask the Chinese guest exactly how China shapes the nature of the message coming from Kim Yang. Mr. Tang, let you talk. What about that? And I mean, he offers the president of North Korea talking about possibility of sending North Korean delegation to the Pyeongchang Olympic Games, and is willing to talk to the South about that possibility, but not mention anything at all about the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula. China already welcomed the exchanges between the North and the South, because the South proposed on the 9th of January, let's just talk, senior level talk. Certainly, very different level of suggestion compared to the North. So what is China welcoming at this point? Is it North Korea sending delegation to the Olympic Games? Or is it North and the South likely, hopefully, to talk to one another, senior level even?
Actually, this is momentum to return to the negotiation table among all the parties concerned. For example, after the visit for the Olympic delegation to Pyeongchang, there should be more and more frequent exchanges between the two countries in the Korean Peninsula. And this
is not promised by the North at this point.
So this is a positive signal to the outside world, and China would like to push forward such a momentum and development. For example, China sent special envoy to Seoul maybe this weekend, and
right.
we continue to have a discussion with the leaders in ROK. And actually, Moon Jae-in, after he took office as president, he has proposed several initiatives. For example, he would like to have a ROK and DPRK community of economic cooperation.
Right.
And actually, after the remarks from Cui Jian, the ROK leaders also gave very positive response, and they would like to have more and more exchanges with the counterpart from DPRK. So China's position is very clear. China welcomed, you mentioned just now, the positive development, especially a sudden change of attitude from DPRK leader.
Apparently,
yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of things going on. The attitude of the United States is also extremely important. Professor Lee, you know better probably than a lot of people about that. But we got, once again, mixed messages coming out of Washington and from the United Nations with the U.S. ambassador there. From Washington, you got the president comparing the size of the buttons. And he was also saying that the U.S. is still assessing what exactly is happening, whether in U.S. favor. So we will see. That's his words. Meanwhile, the State Department is almost putting out very similar tones, suggesting the U.S. do not yet know strategically what is happening right now is going to be in U.S. favor or not. For example, North talking to the South on what level about what. So what do you read, Professor Lee, is the U.S. barometers of assessment, and what would eventually lead to a very clear attitude from Washington? Professor Lee.
Well, the Trump administration, understandably, is wary of North Korea trying to drive a wedge between Washington and Seoul and to undermine the alliance. Of course, it makes sense for North Korea to try to do just that. It is ancient Chinese strategy of using barbarian against barbarian, yi. So North Korea does consider to be in its interest driving fissures, a wedge between South Korea and the United States. But I don't think that's the primary factor in Kim's softer gesture. You know, inconceivable it may be to most Americans, but Pyongyang, North Korea is very good and sees itself as the party that wields the carrot and stick. And again, the timing is perfect. It's right for Kim Jong Un to take a little step back and to create a softer image. Sending athletes and probably cheerleaders to South Korea is good business in terms of politics and economics. It will drive up the TV ratings. It will jazz up the Winter Games. Perhaps even push President Xi and Prime Minister Abe to attend the opening ceremony. Imagine the excitement and even euphoria as North Korean cheerleaders clap and dance and sing, rooting on South Korean athletes or even Chinese athletes, God forbid, American athletes competing against third country contestants. The atmospherics will completely be transformed from one of a flashpoint to a land of peace and reconciliation.
Right.
It's good policy for Kim Jong Un to do this.
Got it. But when one clock is ticking, which is about, whether on January the 9th there's going to be any talk between the North and the South, whether there is going to be any delegation going to Pyeongchang Olympic Games, because that's a clear date, another clock is ticking. That is the clock of the North Korea developing its nuclear capabilities. Mr. Tangen, is this a strategy of putting everybody else a little bit off the ladder, as they say, and also give a little bit comfort and color to the overall relationship between the North and many of those of the six-party talks, the rest of the six-party talks? Or this is likely to be a window opportunity for the others to really jump on these opportunities, not to brush it off. Your assessment?
Well, I think everyone would like it to be a window, as certainly my colleague in the U.S. does. I think from the U.S. perspective, it's probably just going to be seen as a sleight of hand. It's a cold winter. Beijing has shut off the oil. There's a necessity there that's driving, I think, a lot of this. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, Kim Jong Un is not going to give up his nuclear weapons, and the United States is not going to tolerate a nuclear-armed North Korea. So, although it would be wonderful to see these two speeding locomotives side railed, I don't know that that is actually going to happen.
This could be all zigzagging to nothing. It seems that's what Mr. Tang and Professor Lee was suggesting. Mr. Tang? Same? Different?
Yeah, we should be very cautious toward the recent development in Korean Peninsula. That might be a tricky, game played by the leaders from the two Koreans. And I think 2 points I'd like to mention here. First, actually DPRK even returns to the negotiation table. That does not mean DPRK would like to abandon the nuclear bomb and the missile system. And second, I think there is a fundamental change in U.S. threat assessment. And during the recent visit of Donald Trump to Asia-Pacific region, he put the nuclear issue in DPRK's #1 job. And this is a change of threat assessment by the U.S. government when threat has become direct, real, to the homeland of the United States. I'm sure the leaders would take it very seriously. For example, during the Cuba Missile Crisis, John F. Kennedy, the then U.S. president, also deployed all the battleships surrounding Cuba, and suddenly the former Soviet Union retreated all the missile and also the task force to that region. So when the threat is real and direct, I'm sure the U.S. leader will take it serious.
Having said that, though, Professor Lee, there are a lot of talks about what could actually happen and what can be done before that happens. Preventive actions is the most important thing, I guess, at this point. So people talk about the possibility of nuclear war, which is absolutely horrific. There's also the possibility of nuclear accidents, which would lead us to also devastating results. Even war mentioned as well as military conflicts. None of the above really should be chosen by any of the party to achieve whatever goals they are thinking about. But what is the point now is how shall we prepare for the best and work for the best and prepare for the worst, Professor Lee?
Well, North Korea has already won a small concession from the Trump administration. The latest news flash is President Trump has said that there won't be any combined U.S.-South Korea military drills during the Winter Olympics, and that is a necessary step toward achieving the freeze-for-freeze agreement that floated around. So in the short term, North Korea is in a good position, and even if North Korea were to conduct an ICBM test or a nuclear test in the coming days, tomorrow, or on the eve of Kim Jong Un's birthday, which is January 8th, as North Korea conducted a nuclear test 2 years ago on the eve of his birthday, 2 days shy of his birthday, the dynamics are still in place because this softer gesture, peace offensive, is an insurance policy for North Korea against a forceful response by the U.S., even in the wake of the next big provocation. Why? Because the new, fuzzy, warmer dynamics of inter-Korean reconciliation probably will deter any kind of aggressive measure by the United States. And also remember that in the past, Pyongyang's peace offensives on occasion have been a prelude to provocation. That is, before serious provocations, North Korea has frequently reached out for talks with the South. So I think North Korea is well positioned to get a lot of concessions from both South Korea and the U.S. at this time.
So you're suggesting, Professor Lee, very briefly, that the North and the South might have very diverse, rather, the South Korea and the United States might have very different directions in how to achieve the next stage of goals.
I think we will see some tension in the alliance, as we have in the 2000s, when North Korea would send, in 2002, as it did in 2002 and 3 and 5, hundreds of athletes and hundreds of cheerleaders to South Korea when South Korea was holding international sporting events. It really creates, it stirs up inter-Korean, pan-Korean ethnic nationalism. So I think there will be slight divergence in the strategic goals and methods between the U.S. and South Korea in the coming weeks and months.
It's very interesting, Mr. Tang and Mr. Kangan, the different parties previously involved in the six-party talks, how they reacted to these recent developments. We mentioned about the United States, South Korea, China. There's also Japan and Russia. Russia welcomes some of the recent exchanges of apparent good news. But Japan, very interesting. Prime Minister Abe suggested that this is right after the North and the South suggesting they are going to have talks about what we don't know. Japan said this is going to be the most severe, the challenging time for Japan when it comes to security right after World War II. We don't want to forget Japan was defeated by the rest of the world together with Nazi Germany and Italy at the time because he invaded other countries. So it's very interesting, the Japanese attitude. It seems that new development on the Korean Peninsula, whether for true or not, some countries are not very happy.
Yeah, we can interpret such attitude, such differences in the attitude of Japan toward DPRK nuclear issue in two ways. First is the politicians, especially the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He would like to manipulate the tension in Korean Peninsula, for them, give some excuse to have more in the defense budget, to deploy more advanced weapon system. For example, the recent missile defense projects from the United States. And this is the political level. I'm sure the public, they all worried about the threat from DPRK. For example, the missile test just flew over the islands of Japan. So we can interpret such differences, different attitude of Japan in two layers. The first is the political level, and the second is the public level.
At the end of the day, we are very soon to approach whether it is the 8th, which is the birthday, or the 9th, which is the time proposed by South Korea for senior level talks between the North and the South. So how can we expect, what is going to be the barometer you would use to judge things are going better or worse? Mr. Kangan, very briefly.
Well, I'm glad to see that they discontinued the military drills, but that was actually at the request of the South Korean government. I think we just have to wait and see if he explodes another bomb or sends out another missile.
Professor Lee, very briefly from you, what about your thoughts?
In the short term, North Korea will play hard to get, even not really responding to South Korean overtures, suggesting specific times and dates of talks and discussion agenda. North Korea does things dramatically at the 11th hour, at the very last minute, and will keep South Korea hanging, but North Korea will send athletes, and I believe also cheerleaders, because it makes sense to do that.
Mr. Tang, final words?
Yeah, after China and the United States cooperated quite well, especially in recent development after the new resolution adopted by UN Security Council. DPRK might manipulate the contradiction between the United States and the ROK. And because Mu Jian would like to do something in this regard. So I think DPRK leaders have been very good at such a game to manipulate the contradictions between different countries.
So we shouldn't read too much out of it.
Yeah, sure.
What is just happening
we should
right
be very
now.
cautious toward the recent development in Korean Peninsula.
There we go. Teng Jianjun, Sun Young Lee on the phone, Einar Tangen. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us. Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you so much. Stay with us on World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Still to come on our program. Chinese musician Cui Jian has been rocking audiences at home and abroad for the past 30 years. We asked him about his long march to becoming the godfather of Chinese rock and roll. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei, coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. Whether he likes it or not, Cui Jian is the godfather of China's rock and roll. In a performance 30 years ago, when few in China even knew the word rock and roll, he jumped onto the widely publicized concert stage and shouted out his first well-known work, Nothing to My Name. Since then, Chinese rock and roll artists like him have experienced ups and downs well into the 21st century. Seeing one of his underground shows was a badge of honor for once for music enthusiasts in China. I will ask him how he enjoys the label Godfather of Chinese rock and roll after this.
First achieving fame in 1986 because of his signature tune Nothing to My Name, and now called the Godfather of Chinese rock, this is Cui Jian, rocker and musician. He formed his first band, Qi Ban, in 1984 with 6 other classically trained musicians. His first original album, Rock and Roll on a New Long March, was released in 1989. Cui also created a hybrid type of music by mixing rock and folk. His iconic status is such that international acts ranging from Public Enemy to Paul Simon to the Rolling Stones have all invited him to share the stage with them. And now he's still making waves, and he's still making music. His latest venture is trying to combine rock music with the TV industry, but that has also evoked fresh debates in the rock and roll industry, and also about his legacy.
Do you want to be a legend? Do you enjoy being a legend?
No, it's boring. I always say in Chinese, 如果神坛好玩，你就待着去. It makes you blind. It makes you controlled by something, and you care about all the details about success, and then you care about something you don't need it. You know, you lose a lot of chance to make your own judgment. So that kind of stupid things happen. Happen once a year is okay. I can take it. If once a month, I would think it's not worth it.
Many people say with great respect your nickname, Godfather of Chinese rock and roll, and yet you said on some occasions that you want to be the grandson of Chinese rock and roll. What exactly do you mean?
I mean, I can keep the challenge. I can keep the question myself and question everybody equally. I can do something stupid, and nobody really...
Tell me then, what is the stupid thing you want to do?
You know, I question myself, what is the real fun in your life? You know, sometimes you're telling dirty jokes, sometimes you're making, like 调皮的孩子,
like a naughty boy.
Yeah, you know, this kind of feeling, I want to keep that forever. You know, I have a model, you know, like Keith Richards. Yeah, and I heard almost 80 years old, he's still, you know, climbing trees. And he got wound, you know, a few years ago. He fell down from a tree. I thought that's just my future. I like that kind of old style, old age style. You know, I like that kind of feeling.
Having fun.
Yeah.
That means you have to not afraid of failure or failure in others' eyes.
You know, the bigger failure, the bigger, you know, joy.
It could be.
Yeah.
Give me an example.
You know, right now I have a bad example, not a good examples.
I love bad examples. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, for you know, 中国之星, China Star.
That was a reality show / singing contest in a way, and you were one of those judges.
Yes, I took this show for 3 reasons. One is I don't hate the TV audience. That's enough good enough, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
For a rock and roll singer, that's great enough.
But a lot of people, they just hate it. They think they don't really think. They just want, you know, entertainment. And I don't believe that. I said maybe the TV workers are not really trying hard about showing something good, showing something serious. The second one is they pay me.
That's good.
Yeah.
You have to live.
Because they have a lot of sponsorship. But this too is not good enough, actually. I still have a strong feeling I shouldn't take it. But then the third one coming is you have your choice. You have the right to make your own choice.
A choice about what?
About the artist.
The artist that you want to present to the audience through the TV.
Yeah. And then, okay, I take the advantage. And then after I really get in the show, I realized I didn't really know what is the TV
industry.
Yeah.
What is it?
You know, there was a movie called The Truth, and then there was the host say, "Oh, right now I have to go to makeup. This is the only bad things in this business, and all others is good." Okay, this is a exactly picture of, you know, I was thinking about the TV business. It's everything is makeup. Or blow it up and makeup. And I felt, oh, I used to think there was like a stand, 3 legs or 3 groups. One is politicians, one is businessmen, one is artists. So every other 2 get together, they will, you know, win the other one. And now I think I'm in the triangle, you know, game, and I'm trying to keep the balance, playing the 2 games with politicians or with businessmen. I feel I totally lost control. It's not worth it, you know. I feel I'm naked for no reason. You know, I'm naked in somewhere which I don't like.
When you were participating in that program, you did manage, with a lot of your efforts, to promote some of the rising stars, shall I say, individuals, musicians, and bands, rock and roll, onto the mainstream Chinese TV stage.
Yeah.
That never happened before. However, I have to say, those musicians and bands in the program did not perform to their best level.
No.
During that show.
Yeah.
Very much different from what they would be at a live concert.
I would say the TV production, even the concert production is not really for rock and roll right now, because all the concert business grew up earlier in Taiwan and Hong Kong, and in that area.
Rock music first came to China about 30 years ago. Many bands, such as the Tang Dynasty and Black Panther, established themselves in those early years. However, the growth of Chinese rock and heavy metal hit some bumps in the mainland. Far from being in line with mainstream culture, it slid into the underground music scene. But there's more than meets the eye in today's fast-changing China. Young people kept a creative counterculture legacy going through the decades. Bands like Pyongyang and Brain Failure nowadays attract numerous fans. The ups and downs of rock have been strongly tied to the evolution of contemporary China. However, 3 decades have passed since the arrival of rock in China, and the country has also changed a lot. Whether rock can still be active in China remains being a question mark.
Does China still need rock and roll?
Yeah, I think it's because how many things you think, on the desire, how big desire you have, and how big imagination you want to share with the people. I think it's always together with artists. You know,
is China's rock and roll still alive?
It's not a question.
It's not a question.
It's not a question.
It's not a question. A lot of people say that it is dead. They say, well, compared to 30 years ago, 20 years ago, Chinese rock and roll dead. Okay, I give you different numbers. Okay, when they think Chinese rock and roll is alive, it's like 80s or 90s, right? Mid 80s or early 90s, right? But I tell you numbers. There was none concert there.
There has no record company, labels. The news is from newspapers, not even from radios. People talk about rock and roll, and then they write some articles about rock and roll. That's it. Then they don't even spend money on the club shows of rock and roll music. There was no club shows. There was no rock and roll music instrument sale. So how can you say this is alive? I would say that's the time for open the window, and the rock and roll wind came in. That's the moment, but it's not rock and roll age.
And now it is?
Now it is.
Why would you say so?
Because how many rock and roll music festival every year you can see, and how many people they spend money every week for music, drinking in the bar for the live band, for live music, and spend a lot of money for staying in the festival. The young people, they're always there, and the music instrument sale, you know, every year they have more than 10% raise. So that, I said that earlier, many times. I said, when the people they spend money for the live music every week, and then they enjoy the groove, and they cannot live without them, and then there is this rock and roll age coming.
But how many musicians do you think are as disciplined as you are today?
You know, that's why I like jazz music. And all the jazz musicians it's a technique. It's 上不封顶的一种技术的追求。
The techniques could be
Scale.
sky high in a way.
Yeah, all the keys and all the rhythm and all the styles. You can spend endless time on this, and then you still don't get it. That's jazz music.
The rock musicians these days in China, can they still have strength? Can they still have the techniques that you said?
That's why I found out I have three in me. I have 3 CJ in me. One is a very serious, boring guy. And one is a very oily, you know, very easy to deal with. And the other one was really trying things to entertaining themselves, myself. You know, I have to, you know, to learn the new way to get free, you know, to feel free. What I want to talk about is the energy of the rock and roll music, or the energy of a person, the energy of a movement, the energy of a program. So all have an energy. So what is the engine? I would say, okay, Chinese rock music, the engine of Chinese rock music is the freedom of express, or of thinking, of imagine, and then put that. And we don't know how to do other things. No, the only thing we can do is playing music. So I want to put all these kind of things in my works.
Mr. Cui, you were never afraid of trying new things. You created some different genres of music, which many of your old-time fans are not used to. You also made movies, 3 of them, and now you're working on some documentaries. What would all of these experiments mean to you?
It's like an energy, it's like an engine, make me feel, no sleep, don't eat, just get it done. That kind of, that's
you
the
love
energy.
it, don't you?
Yeah, it's a passion, you know. So that is kind of a, I think it's one of the most beautiful, you know, moment in everybody's, you know, life. I believe you have it. I believe everybody know what I'm talking about. You know, that turn you, you know.
They turn you on.
Yeah.
And that energy just flows out.
Yeah.
Now, when you reflect back 30 years, what do you make of this?
I feel I did a lot of things, but I didn't. I only had 6 albums come out during, you know, this 30 years. But I made 3 movies, 1 short, 1 30 minutes, 1 100 minutes. That's it. I didn't really, you know, I'm a pretty hard worker, but I don't know why my works is small numbers. I really don't know why. Maybe because I'm really picky about quality, about everything I did. And I didn't know the time flies that fast. I think I'm a quite good friend with time. So I never feel time is pushing me. Time always, you know, pretty nice to me. Okay, take your time. Okay, I do.
A good friend of time, China's rock and roll legend Cui Jian. Well, that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.